Welcome into a Tuesday, May 6th edition of Daily Faceoff Live. The show is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Over in the Daily Faceoff YouTube, we are, as always, looking for your hashtag AskDFO inbox questions. Tyler Yaremchuk and Frank Seravalli. And Frank, usually we're saying it's a playoff edition of the show, but today we're starting with draft lottery talk. What did you make of the way the NHL decided to do it last night?
Well, I love it. This is what I've been advocating for forever, is to let everyone see what I've personally seen play out sequestered behind the scenes, where they take your phone and you get to witness the whole draw. You're actually handed a stack of papers that has the 1,001 combinations or 1,000 combinations that are possible. And if you do it quick enough and you figure out how to read the pages, you can actually get pretty close to seeing in real time, hey, what are the chances left on this fourth ball? You might have one team that has multiple different combinations or more combinations. And, you know, the thought process has always been the drama involved with that. When you've got three balls already drawn and the last one's going to come up, the top overall team might be out of it at that point in time. It might be teams like the Islanders or Rangers or whoever it might be further down the board, and that's what makes it juicier. That's what makes it spicier. It would just take the live calculation of the odds, which the NHL pulled off. And I think the only place that it loses people is it is somewhat complex with multiple draws, but that's for a reason, because there's guardrails in place as to how far you can move up.
Yeah, again, early on in kind of the show or the broadcast or whatever, I was like, hey, this is kind of pointless. There's going to be no drama. But as soon as I saw the page fly up with the updated odds for everyone, I'm like, okay, this is electric. And maybe that's the gambler in me or whatever, but I really did enjoy it. I thought it was a really unique way to do the draft lottery, and they got some stunning results, Frank. That's one of the most insane draft lotteries we've ever seen. The Islanders, just a 3% chance to pick first overall, shoot all the way up from 10-1. And not only that, Utah goes from 14-4, which is obviously a very, very substantial jump. But let's start at number one with the New York Islanders. The last time they picked first overall was back in 2009 when they selected John Tavares. I mean, hell, they barely picked in the top 5 over the last 10 years. The last time they did was actually 2014 when they took Michael Dal Cole, so 11 drafts ago. But a massive break for the Islanders as they head into a transformational summer for their franchise.
Yeah, I'd say franchise changing in the sense that, hey, this job that was already pretty juicy and attractive for candidates has now gotten that much more interesting. Now, whether that's Ken Holland and someone like him coming in as president of hockey ops, we've heard Mark Bergevin and his name connected, whoever it might be, you've got some interesting building blocks now and some optionality. You've got in net Ilya Sorokin and Noah Dobson on the back end and Matt Barzal up front. But if you can add a top pair defenseman in Schaefer, all of a sudden that's just so much more ammo than you would have otherwise had. Another building block that is so important for trying to assemble players that can be difference makers. When you're picking in that, somewhere in the tens, it's a lot harder to find that. You can get it by dumb luck, you can get it by development, but it's really difficult to do. And this is a huge leg up, and definitely an unexpected one at that, with a 96.5% chance that didn't happen.
And listen, the Islanders going from 10-1, again, the odds wildly not in their favor of doing that. Like I said, 3%. That is one thing, because they're a franchise that is sort of seemingly just heading into this long building process. Utah going from 14-4 is fascinating, because that's a team who's going the other way, Frank. They want to make the playoffs next year. So again, we all assume they're going to be picking at 4. And I was joking with Stephen Ellis earlier, like, these early picks never get traded. No one ever trades down, as much as we love to fantasy GM it. But if any team was going to, it's that Utah team.
I don't know. I think you've got some great optionality here. Like, I think if you can find a player that you think is going to be a difference maker for you, or really help your team, use it. Like, I'd say you trade something else, trade the other bevy of picks that you have, trade from your prospect pool where you might have some duplication now in terms of position, but keep this one. I think one team to keep an eye on, the San Jose Sharks, mentioned after the draft Mike Greer that he's definitely still open to move number 2. And I think if you put the right deal in front of the Chicago Blackhawks, that they would consider moving number 3. So It's going to be a fascinating draft from that perspective, but Utah making the biggest jump since 2017 when the Flyers went from 13 to 2. This is a pretty significant moment for Utah, and obviously so unexpected because you think about the rest of the sport. Nashville, 21 points back of Utah Hockey Club this season. Utah's picking before them. That's tough to swallow.
Yeah, that is something. All of those teams, Nashville, Philly, Boston, Seattle, all falling 2 spots in the draft. And the San Jose fall from 1 to 2. When you look at just what a good fit Matthew Schaefer looked like in their system, that is a pretty big blow. We're going to talk more about the draft lottery with Stephen Ellis coming up in a little bit, Frank. But let's turn our attention to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And what an electric game 1 between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers. Early on, it was all Willie Nylander. He bangs home a couple early. And listen, as much as you can talk about the Leafs core 4 and not coming through in big moments, Nylander is almost the exception to that. He's now up to 25 goals in 61 career playoff games. He's got 12 points in 7 games already in these Stanley Cup playoffs. So Nylander was great early, but the big story, Frank, is the injury to Anthony Stolarz. I mean, he's on the bench or next to the bench, vomiting from the shots to the head. And I say shots because I do think the one that rattled his cage, the puck that got him between the eyes, was just as impactful as this Bennett one. But what did you make of Stolarz going down? Obviously not something you ever want to see.
No, it's not. And this one is really tough to stomach because I think you understand from people in the concussion world. And I sent out the tweet last night from Chris Nowinski, neuroscientist who's founder of the Concussion Legacy Foundation, was a WWE wrestler, played high level football, understands concussions honestly as well as anyone on the planet. And he said, PSA, if you're ever vomiting after potentially sustaining a concussion, go to the ER immediately. He tweeted that before we even knew that Anthony Stolarz was transported to the hospital on a stretcher. Now, I'll park my thoughts on the hit for a second, and we'll get into and fully discuss the Sam Bennett situation. I think one of my biggest concerns about the state of hockey and where we're at this exact moment in time is exactly the rhetoric that the Toronto Maple Leafs have allowed to be put out there today, Tuesday, May 6th at 11:30 a.m. Anthony Stolarz was on site, and Craig Berube was asked, will we see Anthony Stolarz in game 2? And he said, we'll see. Again, we're making some leaps here that a concussion was sustained. There's the potentiality based on the video that we've seen and Anthony Stolarz giving his head a shake twice that we have seen Anthony Stolarz sustain 2 concussions in 1 game. Potential. Now, team doesn't acknowledge that. It's the playoffs. I get it. It's 2025. We're long past the point of, hey, let's not disclose the injury. It's a concussion, and that's it, if that's what it is. Announce it, say it, stop hiding behind other words, and let's talk about the actual danger that Anthony Stolarz was in last night, as opposed to just being like, well, we'll see about his availability. I mean, yeah, I guess the answer is we'll see, but if that is the case, declare that he's immediately out for game 2, say that it's a concussion, and stop hiding. It's not good for the sport. Brandon Hagel out here last week saying you only have one brain. Enough. End it. Stop the charade. It's too much.
Well, and the other thing, too, from the Leafs' perspective, and not that this should come into play at all, because if a guy has a head injury, I don't care who your backup is, you don't rush him back. But you have Joseph Woll here, and he's come through for you in the playoffs in years past. He also had a great regular season. There were points in the regular season where the conversation was happening in Toronto about who do you start in game 1 of the playoffs. So, again, if you're Toronto, 0 need. Again, not that there ever is, but you should not be putting that guy at any sort of a risk of getting another head injury in these Stanley Cup playoffs. This should be Joe Woll's crease.
But that further highlights the point of, and I know you're supporting it, if any team in the league was well set up to run in a tandem for the duration of the playoffs, it was the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, maybe you could make an argument for the Carolina Hurricanes, given how much the workload has been for Pyotr Kochetkov over the last few years, given Freddie Anderson's injury status. But the Leafs are well situated here with Joe Woll. I don't think a huge drop off, if any, and maybe even a higher ceiling with Joe Woll stepping in. So not a concern there, but it's not really about who's in or who's out. It's about addressing the actual issue head on, which is if Anthony Stolarz sustained a concussion, he should be declared out for a minimum of a week. It should be longer than that. This guy, if you're vomiting from symptoms, you shouldn't be playing again in this series. Period. Stop. Full stop. End of story. That's it.
And with
my rant's over.
Okay, yeah, and again, with everything we know about head injuries now and everything we've learned in the last however long, decade plus, like if he comes into the rink feeling good today, that doesn't mean he can play hockey tomorrow. Okay, put that to the side. No supplemental discipline for Sam Bennett. Right or wrong call?
Right call. Well, let me stop that for a second. In this current environment, with what we could expect, we knew that this wouldn't result in a suspension. This was part of a hockey play, but I think you're absolutely 100% kidding yourself if you think that Sam Bennett accidentally knocked Anthony Stolarz in the head, or any goalie. Take the nameplate off the back because they're former teammates and they're friends, and I think everyone appreciates that he sent a message of support to Stolarz. Great. Sam Bennett knows damn well what he's doing. Like, let's call that for what it is, okay? Now, the question is, should that be a suspension? Not will it, because we know that it's not, but should goalies be better protected than that? Even if it's in the course of a hockey play, a jam play where someone's trying to do something at the net, and you could say, oh, these have happened for the test of time. Maybe so. But maybe goalies shouldn't be taking forearm shivers to the head, because I don't view this play really all that differently than the play that was suspended, even though it was part of a hit last round. It's still a forearm to the head. And he knew exactly what he was doing. It's not just it's not accidental. I'm sorry, it isn't.
It's also in the blue paint. Like, I know that I knew they weren't going to suspend him. The fact this wasn't a penalty in the moment either, I think was absolutely ridiculous. I felt like this should have been an easy call. And honestly, if it's called properly on the ice, maybe there's less outrage off the ice and in the aftermath of all of this. But
let me ask you a question. If the puck went in the net, would this have been called goalie interference or not?
That is such a good point. Yes, it absolutely would have been called goalie interference.
Okay, so if you're watching this in real time, why wasn't a 2-minute penalty handed out even though it didn't go in the net?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, like, again, why that wasn't a penalty in the moment is just beyond me. And again, it goes back to the officiating, which I thought was just wildly inconsistent in that hockey game, going both ways. Like the miss on Barkov, the actual call on Domi. I felt like the officials got themselves into the makeup call pretzel real early on in that hockey game, and they never found a way to untangle themselves from it. So regardless, Leafs up 1-0. We'll move on. John Goins is going to give us a film breakdown of that first game as well later on this week. But tonight, a couple other series kicking off. Frank, let's go out west, where the Edmonton Oilers will begin their series with the Vegas Golden Knights. Let's just maybe quickly go through some key areas for both teams, some keys to victory, if you will. For me, I'll start. It's the Oilers' depth. The last time these two teams met in the playoffs 2 years ago, granted, they are somewhat different teams. McDavid and Draisaitl had 11 goals. They got 3 more on the power play from Bouchard and Hyman. So with McDavid and Draisaitl on the ice, they had 14 goals. The rest of their roster scored 5. The Oilers' depth needs to be better for them to compete this time around against the Golden Knights, and to their credit, they were better against LA. What do you see from the Golden Knights in this series as something they must do?
Well, I was going to say the Oilers' depth might actually be better than the Golden Knights up front. I mean,
yeah,
Evander Kane and then a healthy Trent Frederick made a bigger impact each game as the series went on. I thought critically important to the Oilers' success. Critically important for the Vegas Golden Knights' success is getting that top line playing the way that they did to close out the series. Much better, much improved. I think they've got a group of players that have the brains to go up against the top players in the world that the Edmonton Oilers have. I think they've got a clear advantage over Edmonton on defense and in goal. And I think that this series comes down to a coin flip. It's going to be about which team can play a cleaner brand of hockey over the next 2 weeks, because both shown vulnerabilities, both showed a lot of things that they could fix. And I just think the Oilers are that much more if this makes any sense when I say it, on the polls. They're either one way or the other. They're either really, really good or they're really, really bad. And sometimes in the same game, you're not going to be able to give away games the way that you did against the LA Kings and think that you're going to win a series against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, bang on. The Golden Knights, again, Stanley Cup champions. They know how to win in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The other thing I had for Vegas was just their blue line on paper. So good. I mean, a third pairing that has Noah Hannafin. At points in that Minnesota series, it felt like almost every Golden Knights defenseman had some really tough moments. But if that blue line can play to the level they're capable of, that's an absolute series changer. Let's go out east. Canes at the Capitals, Frank. Let's start with Carolina. The one thing that jumped off the page to me was in round one, their power play was all the way up to 31%. In the regular season, it was only 18%. The Canes' big guns finding ways to contribute, not just, 31%, but contribute in meaningful ways will be very, very big in this series. What stands out to you as the Canes and Caps get ready to begin their battle?
How will the Carolina Hurricanes manage the size and physicality that the Washington Capitals bring? It's a clear advantage that Washington has. They pushed around the Montreal Canadiens for big stretches of those games, particularly early on in games. And Carolina, can they score at the same pace as Washington, which slowed down a bit in the playoffs as to be expected compared to the regular season? But Washington still has plenty of threats, and don't sleep on Dylan Strome, who I think for my money was the Washington Capitals MVP in round one. He's going to be an impactful piece going toe-to-toe, likely at times with Sebastian Aho. So, look, it's a really close matchup. I don't think there's a lot that separates these teams. I see this series going 7. I've got the Canes in 7, which may be surprising to some, but I think the fact that they've been there and done it before will matter.
The two goalies in these Stanley Cup playoffs, and this is via moneypuck.com, who have the highest goals saved above expected, Logan Thompson, Freddie Anderson, the two goalies of the 8 that are left, I should say. So low scoring games could maybe be an expectation. Of course, Freddie Anderson's health, always a question as well. So there's your doubleheader tonight. Is the Canes versus the Capitals, the Golden Knights hosting the Edmonton Oilers. Frank, let's get to our big segment for the day and dig into more draft lottery talk with our boy Stephen Ellis. The next wave is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, where you can get a custom ring built and delivered in 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program. It all comes with their unbeatable pricing policy. Plus, you can apply for a Charm Diamond Flexity card today and get approved for no interest financing on your purchase in minutes. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. Daily Faceoff prospect analyst Stephen Ellis joins us, as he always does, for his weekly hit. And Stephen, the NHL draft lottery, those damn lottery balls made you work extra hard yesterday redoing your mock draft. But let's start at the top, where the Islanders rocket up to number 1. Are the Islanders in their just take the best player available window and don't overthink it, or is there a positional fit for them at number 1? Oh, you're muted, Stephen.
The Islanders have one of the worst pipelines in hockey, so they need a lot of big pieces here. And I think going out there and getting Cal Ritchie definitely gave them one really good center that they can look at there. But I think you just got to go for who the best player available is. And if I'm making that pick, I'm just going with Matthew Schaefer, but it is close because you look at the fact that Schaefer did not play a lot of hockey this year. Michael Misa had an outstanding season in the OHL, one of the best draft eligible seasons we've seen in a long time. With Schaefer, though, it's that could be. Could you imagine a defense that's run by Noah Dobson and Matthew Schaefer? Like, finding a player of Schaefer's caliber is going to be hard because you look at the Islanders next year, unless they tear things down and are at the bottom. Or I should say in the next 2 years, they're probably not getting Landon DuPont in 2027. That's the big defensive piece the next couple of years. Keaton Verhoff's another one for next year. Xavier Villeneuve. Like, there are some good pieces, but this is a team that was slated to pick a little later until they won the lottery there. So I'm not expecting them to be a bottom 2, bottom 3 team and get one of those top defensive prospects. You're going to find a lot of offensive talent the next couple of years. I think this year you just go out there and take Matthew Schaefer.
All right, Pat, let's throw Steven's top 5 up on the board for the mock draft because I'm really curious about what happens after this. You look at the Sharks and you go, okay, Michael Misa, that makes sense. You go, you're pretty set down the middle for your team the next decade plus if you're San Jose. But I guess where I struggle or find it interesting is the Blackhawks and Porter Martone at 3. They don't need another winger. They need a center. So what do?
I would take Martone in this situation here because that's a guy out of everybody in this list. Misa's probably the one you want to go out there and score a goal because he's just got that ability to score at any point, and he's the one that you can rely on there. But Martone's a guy that you win in the playoffs with. He's the guy that's out there being aggressive. He's the one laying it on the line at all times. I know a lot of people are looking at this and saying, okay, well, he's maybe not the greatest skater. I'm not too worried about a player of his caliber figuring how to skate when he gets to the NHL and he's got high-level coaches working with him. And having watched him back to his U15, U16 year, like this is a guy that has taken big steps forward as a skater. And for me, as good as Higgins is, I just like the idea of Martone going out there and playing with Bedard because he's always been able to play with highly skilled players, and the ability to go out there and hit guys and be aggressive and play like a Matthew Tkachuk player. Every team wants him. And if I'm picking best player available at that point, even though I do have Higgins higher up in my rankings, I just think there's a better fit there in Chicago's top 6.
Okay, so let me spin my question a different way. How close are 2 through 5 in terms of ability and impact? Let's park positions. Would it be odd for a team to pick based on positional need because these players might be construed as equals?
I think it's all really close. I'd say Misa, I would not really want to include there. I think it's more 2, like the 1, 2, and then 3 to 5. And when you're looking at there, if Martone, they're all very different players. Martone's just aggressive forward. Higgins is a really smart playmaker. Frundell, great shot. He can play center and the wing. I think when you're looking at the upside here, Martone is the guy I've watched the most in this year's draft, and I feel like he's being way too underrated. And I think it's because, again, people will say he's not a great skater, but he's taken big steps forward. I'm not worried about him growing there. Then you look at Higgins. I understand the thing where a lot of scouts want him to be a winger, and that's because he's not a very big center. There are some similarities to him and Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes figured it out. I'd say Jack Hughes is a more skilled player, so it was more likely he was going to figure it out. With Higgins, I do wonder if he will go play in the wing because he's added some muscle, but he's not that physically strong yet, and I think that could hurt him as a center. You look at Frundell, a bit stronger, but a bit too inconsistent for my liking. We just saw him at the under-18s just kind of do nothing there. So I'd say they're close, but if I'm the Blackhawks specifically, I really like the idea of Martone because he's going to cause chaos on a team that's going to have a lot of skill moving forward.
We kind of laughed before the show, Steven, that like it's a fantasy GM exercise to sit there and talk about trading down or moving away. But when you look at these 5 teams now in the top 5, and if there is, a bit of a drop off after that, are there any of them that, like, based on where they're at in the process, whether they're trending down or trending up, that you look and go like, you know what? Maybe this isn't the draft class for you. Maybe it does make sense to get something to help now and slide down in the first round a little bit.
Maybe it's the Islanders, and it's just partly because they just got house money here as a team that was not projected to pick in the top 5. They're going to get a significantly better prospect. You look at here, like the Sharks and the Blackhawks are 2 teams that by Landon DuPont's draft here in 2027 are probably going to want to take steps forward. They don't want to be down here at the bottom anymore. So maybe they move up. I doubt it. Like that's the thing. Like we talked about it before. We just don't see trades this high up in the draft. It's such a rare thing. It seems like when you look online, people think it happens a lot more than it actually does. But if the Islanders, like you could draft 6th, 7th, or 8th, and you're still getting an upgrade over what you thought you were getting. So that could be a situation there. Like I know teams like Philadelphia, I believe, have 3 first rounders. Nashville's got a bunch of high picks too. Like, do those teams move up? I'm still thinking no one moves, but the Islanders would be an interesting one because they weren't probably expecting to pick first overall.
Before I let you go, just quickly, what did you make of the draft lottery presentation last night?
When I started to figure it out, I was with a group of like 10 or 12 people. And when we figured out what was happening, I was like, oh, that's kind of entertaining. But in a sense, I kind of like the intrigue of not knowing which card was going to come up next in the past. I kind of missed that. I felt like that was better for TV, but the drama and seeing the live odds change, I thought they did a very good job in the broadcast yesterday. So I'll give them that credit. But draft lotteries to me are better when no teams change places and I don't have to touch my pre-written mock draft.
Well, your newly fixed up mock draft is available at dailyfaceoff.com. People can go give it a read. Steven, appreciate your time. Thanks, man.
Thanks so much.
All right, Frank, Daily Faceoff inbox question, hashtag askdfo. Jeremiah asked again, along those lines, do you think we see any trades in the top 10? You know who I'm really intrigued by with trading as I was watching the draft lottery odds come in? The Habs are picking at 16 and 17. Wouldn't it make sense for them to move one of those picks for some help right now?
I wouldn't be shocked if they did. I think what else is going to be really interesting is going to be what do the New York Rangers do with that number 12 overall pick? They have until 48 hours before the draft begins to decide whether or not they want to convey that pick, essentially to really to Pittsburgh. And I would do it solely because I think if things do go sideways next year, which I think they're primed for a bounce back, but let's just say on the off chance that it does go sideways, you definitely don't want to have your team win the lottery and it's the Pittsburgh Penguins that hold a 2026 unprotected first round pick, which is, one of the huge boons of the deal. I think in this uncertainty of the draft, which is a way thinner and more average draft, let the 12th overall pick go, be happy with JT Miller, and live to fight another day in 2026 with the uncertainty and unknown that surrounds it in a much, much better draft.
Yeah, we also got another one asking, now that it looks like the Islanders could get Schaefer, does it do anything for pending RFA Noah Dobson? Does it make the Islanders more open to moving him? To me, you could have a left shot in Schaefer, a right shot in Dobson. It puts even more pressure on them to get Noah Dobson signed up long term.
Yeah, and I totally disagree with Steven. I think if you have something like this fall in your lap, that number one pick, don't trade it. Take it for what it is, an opportunity to pick a potentially special player and count your lucky blessings. Don't go about trying to, it's like one of those situations where if you're a blackjack player, you get a 6 and you've got a 9 and an ace for a 20 and you're like, oh, I'm going to be greedy and double down here. And then you end up with a 10 and you have 13 or whatever it is, 12, 11.
I get what you're saying.
Don't need it. You don't need to do it.
Let's get to our daily bets for Bet365, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Game props, player props, totals, money line. You can even bet on futures like series winners and, of course, the Stanley Cup champion. Whatever you bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. 2 plays tonight. I like shot prop parlay, Oilers Golden Knights. Eichel hit this in 4 straight. Draisaitl hit it in 3 of 4. I think the big guns are going to be firing a lot of pucks in this one. Plus 140 on that one. And then I also, similar to the Leafs last night, I like a little home dog to start their series. Why not? Washington, game 1 at home. I like that they're plus money, so I'm going to take the Caps on the money line tonight. And that brings us to garbage time to wrap up the show, Frank. And a little thing, again, Marc-Andre Fleury, he does the retirement thing, and then he says, hold up, I'm not done yet. He's going to the Worlds with Team Canada, and he's joining Sidney Crosby. That reunion is cool. Nathan McKinnon's going to be at the tournament as well. And maybe this is just 3 guys who all like each other and are like, hey, this would be cool to go play. Maybe this is like an unintended consequence or ripple effect of the Four Nations face-off, where guys are like, you know what? No, I really want to go play for Team Canada any chance I can get. I do like that the World Hockey Championships is going to have some star power again.
It's maybe a combination of all those things. I can tell you that Sidney Crosby, over the last 3 weeks of the regular season, had been campaigning for a bunch of players behind the scenes and actually personally contacting some of them to try and get them to play. And reuniting with Marc-Andre Fleury was certainly one of them. But then there was a period of time where it was touch and go. Would Crosby even play? And he was a little bit banged up, I think, to end the season, but then continued skating, kept practicing even after the Pittsburgh Penguins season ended, which I think was a sign to a lot of people that he was going to try and play for Team Canada. And now here we are, also connected again with Nathan McKinnon. Just shows you how hungry these guys are, not just for the Olympics, but really just to compete in general. They're it's tough for them to be sitting out, missing out on this playoff action, but to get a chance to feed that beast and to do it in a beautiful city in Stockholm kind of makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, the Stockholm angle is not bad at all. All right, Stephen Ellis will have coverage of the World Hockey Championships for us at Daily Faceoff as well. Doubleheader of playoff action. Then tomorrow we'll be here to break it all down. That is a wrap on today's edition of the show. See you right back here Wednesday at noon Eastern. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content. From daily live shows with Frank Seravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.